All right, and we're back with another episode of the Writers Guild podcast. I am your host, Belton Tisdale, along with our other host, Kason Wysong. That's the author of the Colors of the Mayhem series, which you can find on Amazon. And you know what? I'm thinking,
yeah.
Kason, we got to like construct some little intro, right? Where like I can like fire off like your Twitter handle or whatever, or X, whatever we call it these days, and stuff like that. Because I was thinking, you actually have a social media presence and you have books published, and it stands to reason to kind of like get that a little shout out. Probably write something up for the bio at the beginning of the episode. Um, so,
I think that would be a great topic, actually,
oh
is
yeah,
social
topic.
media and presence and our thoughts on the necessity of it as authors. But
Oh, dude, you'll have to
bookmark
lead the
that.
charge on that one because I'm the guy who just sort of hunkers down and I write, and when the time
Mhm.
comes, I'll figure it out. But I know nothing about that yet. Anyway, what's up?
I love that. Yeah. But we'll
Oh, thank
we'll
you.
we'll pin mark that for next episode. But yeah.
Okay.
All
Anyway,
right.
so today's episode is about magic systems. Magic systems. I'm gonna go ahead and fire off a question for you, Kason. The people back home, our fan Tyler. He wants to know
Yeah. Oh yeah.
what
Our fan, one
makes
fan.
woo. He wants to know what makes a magic system good.
Yeah. What makes a magic system good?
And I am looking for a purely subjective answer here. Like, what do
Perfect.
you? Because like I'm gonna give a subjective answer. So like, what resonates with you with a magic system?
Yeah.
What makes it work?
Absolutely. And it is subjective or arbitrary. I personally, what resonates with me is a defined system with
Yeah.
cost or consequences intertwined within the magic itself. I don't like the idea of kind of limitless or vague power.
Yeah.
I think Gandalf's cool, but I would like to know exactly what he's capable of. And that way, I think it helps establish the stakes a little bit more because, what, like, for instance, if we're talking, I think Brandon Sanderson is a master of this, right? Like, he's got clearly defined magic systems. And if in one of his books, he actually talks about this on a podcast in the Mistborn trilogy, at the end of book one, he was going to have the main character unlock a new power right at the end of the book. But then he actually rewrote that whole section because he wasn't comfortable with the idea of introducing, like, oh, and by the way, she can also do this. I have
Hmm.
seen that done well, and it can be a way to accentuate a scene in the power of it, where you kind of get to that super saiyan moment and fully unleash. But I think that's all part of like the promise. If it's not built up and it's kind of out of left field,
Hmm.
then that can hit the reader wrong. So you sort of need to read the room. But personally, for me, the magic systems that resonate the most would be um, mostly from Brandon Sanderson's books, where there's what does he call it? Allomancy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, and I
I know what
think
you're talking
that
about.
one in particular was like so cool just because of the different metals and the way he would describe scenes and whatnot. I think lashings and whatnot are pretty sweet too, in like the Stormlight archives. Um, I'll give one other shout out, and that's just to the Wheel of Time series, because it's a little less of a rigid system
Yeah.
and cost benefit approach to magic. But I think that Robert Jordan did an excellent job throughout that series of
Yeah.
kind of creating the system of channeling. And it does have these guidelines, let's call them, that the wielders have to stay within, but they're they're not so constricted that there wasn't room to have their powers evolve throughout the series, but they weren't so vague that it was just like Rand al'Thor coming in and like slinging a meteorite at someone. So that's kind of a rundown of my thoughts on magic.
Oh, dude, I
What
totally
about
get that. Oh crap, I forget the name of the book. It's got like the word crow in it. It's about a heist. It's a fantasy heist.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Six of Crows. There you go. Okay, so you talked about a character at the end unlocking a new power, And if it wasn't like, sufficiently telegraphed ahead of time, then it's really convenient, which is like a general issue in writing, right? If you don't tell us about the shotgun on the mantelpiece, in the act before or a few chapters prior, then it's going to be like, wow, that's convenient. Which is why I agree that magic systems are really great when they're more systematic and how they're expressed in the writing, because then that kind of like puts restrictions on the author. And thus, when things do happen, there's a clear line between cause and effect that feels natural instead of convenient. I was talking to myself in the car yesterday thinking about this conversation. I was super articulate, and I was like, I wish myself luck in replicating that. And I think I got a smidge of it. But
heck yeah.
But yeah, in Six of Crows, man, at the end of that book, did you read that one?
I watched the TV show.
Oh,
So not the same.
so not the same at all. Though they did brilliantly cast one of the characters for that.
Which one?
I forget the name of the characters, but like the main guy who kind of heads the group, who's this like wily pickpocket who's always wearing gloves and all that. When you see him in the net, he has a limp and all that. Yeah. When you first see his character in the show, I was like, wow, they nailed it. Which is a special thing about casting unknowns, is you can cast an actor who just like perfectly fits the role, and you're not like, wow, all I can think about is his role in SNL. What's going on? But anyway, that book, at the very end, a character unlocks immense power, and it is sufficiently telegraphed. However, the power is so powerful that when the moment came, the way this person uses their power to get their friends out of a pinch, it felt less like they were a character in a book exerting power, and more like it was somebody sitting at a computer using their mouse to like click and drag things around, because they had such total control over the situation. That's how it felt to me. People love this book, so not everyone feels that way, but I felt a major disconnect in that moment because the character had such immense power, and they did telegraph it, but the way the moment itself was expressed felt too easy to me all the same. And I'm sure plenty of people would get all like riled up, but like it wasn't my cup of tea. But anyway, that was an offshoot of a response to what you just said. I'll go ahead and I'm going to give my formal answer to the question of what I think makes a magic system good. I like systematic, but I don't like it to be too systematic. And I say that having read a number of Brandon Sanderson books. I like a system in which there's a clear line between cause and effect, but I also like there to be a sense of mystery. I want magic to feel like it's an otherworldly power that we can't ultimately truly comprehend. And if a magic system is too technical in nature and too exacting, you go from, okay, we got cause and effect, clear line of consequences and all that, which is good, equal and opposite reaction, blah, blah, blah. It's something that befits reality, and it feels like something grounded. That's great. But if it becomes too technical, it starts to feel to me like a math equation. And I have a full comprehension that, 2 + 2 = 4, but there's no mystery. There is no, what was that? And I like there to be a little bit of an incomprehensible element to it. So I want there to be rules, but I want there to be mystery as well. And there's obviously a line to ride there. You wouldn't want it to be so mysterious that it becomes incomprehensible to the point that it could, ride the line of becoming convenient in its applications. You do want it to be clear that this is what it can do, and obviously it couldn't do this or that, so that when a character does come up with a plan to do something that gets them out of a pinch, it feels like a clever execution of that power as opposed to, convenient. So yeah, that's my take on it. But more than that, the defining element that makes a magic system good to me is what makes any aspect of writing good to me, and it's the expression. So like I wrote down a few different things, magic systems that I really like. I've already mentioned the skill in Assassin's Apprentice, so I'm not going to like harp on that now because I would just be repeating myself. But there's also the sword in Brandon Sanderson's Warbreaker. Not a lot of people are a huge fan of that book. I, for one, am. It's one of the few standalone books he has. I say few. There's a lot. He's just read a lot of books, period. But I really love. There's a magic sword in that book, and I think that might be my favorite variety of magic in fiction is a magic sword. I just love a
Just
magic
like an
sword.
object having the magic,
Well,
and then you
no,
can
no,
pick it up.
specifically a sword. I mean, an
Oh,
object in
okay.
general is cool, but specifically a sword that's already a weapon of war and has a cool style to it, and the fact that it's like enchanted is just so cool. And anytime an author has a magic sword, I'm very interested to see their take on it. And I love the sword in Warbreaker. I forget its name. I didn't research. I'm gonna get better at this. But the way it's expressed, like the mechanics of its magic are not complicated. It's pretty simple, but it has restrictions. It has cause and effect and all that stuff. But most importantly, the way it's expressed is so stinking cool. In the opening chapter, you see the sword and you get a hint at how dangerous and powerful it is and how difficult it would be for someone to wield. And it was exciting, again, because of the way it was expressed. There's also some magic in Uprooted. That's a kind of goofy YA novel that I'm not particularly into because I wasn't the target audience for it. But
Can I ask real quick, breaking in,
yes.
just before we move on from Warbreaker, what was the end result of picking up that sword? Like, what type of magic could it wield? Was it just like destroy? Like, I'm very curious.
So the smith that forged the sword forged it for one task to destroy evil is its purpose, and it
I
is
nailed that.
yeah, and it's sentient, right? So like it has the will to
Oh,
do that, but its capacity for feeding is what also fuels its power for feeding. So the idea is like when somebody unsheaths that sword, they better be ready to sheath it again because it will feed off of them and feed off of them and feed off of them and destroy evil and all that. And no one will be left.
wow.
It's
Because we all
aw-
have darkness in us.
well that, but also because whoever's holding the sword is just it's going to feed off of them. Whatever power source, whatever magic they have within them, it's going to feed off of that. And when it's gone, it's going to feed off of them. At that point, you're not going to have very long because your soul compared to whatever well of power you had in you before is small in comparison. So it feeds off you. It really, I love that he did that because like it's powerful, but it's like it's unwieldy, it's dangerous. You need to know what you're doing, and it's really just best as a deterrent. And there's other ways it's used in clever applications. I don't really want to like tell you though, because I would love. Have you read Warbreaker? Have you, Kason?
You know,
I know you have you got a long backlog of books to read. I invite you to add one more thing to your to-do list so you can feel slightly more overwhelmed when it's supposed to be fun. Dude, it's
hey,
so
I'm in.
stinking good. I mean, full disclosure, all the people I've recommended the book to thus far, two other people read it, and they both kind of like shrugged their shoulders and went, it was okay. I think it's brilliant. It's my favorite Brandon Sanderson novel, and it's one of my favorite fantasy novels. I'm of the opinion that some people don't have any taste. That's my answer to other people
Oh,
not
fair
like.
enough.
Yeah, that's just my response. It's like you just don't know it's good. So like there is a possibility that it won't resonate with you as it did with me, but I think it's awesome, and I like to think that we're fairly aligned with our taste. So I do think you would be into
I
it.
was just thinking that. Yeah, I'll definitely add it to the queue.
So yeah.
One last thought on that is I need something to kind of like bring me back into the Brandon Sanderson fandom because I mean I love Brandon Sanderson, I always
Yeah.
will, but man, I tell you, I am slogging through that book four. Actually, I put it away again, like I'm taking a hiatus.
Yeah, you retired.
So
Yeah.
I need a good book to be like, oh yes, it's worth
Palette
it.
cleanser. Yeah, Warbreaker's
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
It is connected to a greater universe, but it's a story that stands on its own two legs. So there's none of that. You got to read this prequel. You got to read the next book in the series, or you're not going to get a
Right.
full resolution of conflict. No, it ends everything, ties it up with a nice bow. I love the concepts presented. I love the characters. It really subverts the formula a lot in a lot of ways, and it makes it delightfully fun. I think it's so stinking good. There's so much I love about it. There's like this mysterious character that you don't really know what he's up to, but he's cool. He's got a lot of the cool factor. The sword obviously leans hard into the rule of cool, which is important. That's another thing, actually, adding to the list of things that are important for a magic system for me is the rule of cool. Make it awesome, and that
That
doesn't
too.
always have to make sense. cool, can stand on its own. Anyway, I'll also briefly tell you about Uproot. I don't want to make this segment of the episode too long, so I need to wrap it up because it already has been too long. The other thing I took note of is Uprooted, which is kind of a goofy YA novel with some, I would argue, questionable romance in it. In terms of like who's romancing who, it's a little weird.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's a little strange as far as I'm concerned. That could be a theme for another episode. Is these romantic YA novels? But anyway, Uprooted has a great magic system in it, in so much that like not the system itself. It's not terribly systematic. It actually is much more gestural and expressive. It's much more of it's a soft magic system. I'll just use the proper terminology, but the author is so good at expressing personality in the magic wielder. She was very intent on showing how each and every individual made use of the magic and how their personality came through in that. And so you really got a sense of like, this is a magic system in which you can really do anything. And it all comes down to how you are as a person in executing its powers. And I thought that was quite clever. I like how, again, in terms of not the systematic component, but in terms of expressing the magic, she did a good job. There's also 2 magical items in the book that I thought were expressed brilliantly. And I wish, since I read it on my Kindle, I had the option to like highlight passages and save them as notes for reference later. I wish I had done that. I didn't start doing that until after I read Uprooted, so I don't have notes on it on file. I've saved notes for like lots of different books for like whenever an author uses like a word I don't know, or there's like a particularly clever passage or description I like. So I didn't do that with Uprooted, but it has 2 magical artifacts in it. There's the way I describe it to people is that there's a sword that drinks and a book that corrupts. Those are 2 magical items in the book. So obviously, again, I love a magic sword, and the sword, you see someone just forging the sword. It's not even done yet. And the idea is that they're like hammering incantations into this sword, and it's all not unlike the sword in Warbreaker. It's all for one purpose. It's to just suck life, drink. And it's forged for one purpose, and that's to kill a god. And it's so insanely powerful that like one hit with a sword, even if it's just a nick, can absolutely do the job, but it would destroy the sword in the process. Like, this is a one-hit wonder. And the way the author described it, I don't have it memorized, so I can't quote it to you or anything like that. But when you see the sword and when it's described to you in that passage, you get a sense of how hungry it is. And it's unironically awesome. I was like, this is so stinking cool. Then there's the book that corrupts. It's this musty old book. It smells like a bunch of wet leaves. It smells like a forest during the rainy season. And it kind of has that classic like Lord of the Rings Ring of Power effect to it, where there's not a sentience to it, but it does have an influence over people. Like a character finds it in a library and picks it up and starts flipping through pages and starts to feel sick, and then like slams the book shut and realizes, whoa, that something was going on there. It's influencing. That's evil, and is disturbed and tries to get rid of it. But then later finds out that someone else got their hands on it. And when she's like, oh no, I got to stop this, she like runs into like the chapel or wherever it was where the book is being read, and finds a guy on this is a word that I discovered by reading the days, like in a church where they have the raised platform.
Oh yeah.
Is it called days? Or is that how you pronounce it?
I always pronounce it dias. It's days, but
it is days. Okay.
I read it and I'm like DAIS.
Dude,
in my head,
I 100% know how you are. I learned the word debris by reading, and for the longest time I bifurcated, I guess is how I say that word. I don't know how to pronounce anything apparently. I split between how I said it aloud and how I read it to myself, and I didn't realize my mistake until one day I'm at work, I'm reading a manual and it has the word debris in it, and I read, since I was reading it and I read aloud in front of coworkers, debris. And one of the coworkers looks at me and he's like, no one has ever said that in my life. What are you talking about? And I had a little existential crisis, and for like a year afterward, I had to undo that, where I'd be reading something and I would say it in my mind as debris, and I was like, debris, debris, and I would get upset with myself. And it's only been over like the past like 6 months or so where my mind is like, oh yeah, debris. And I'm like, oh, finally I uprooted that problem. Hey. Anyway,
my word was epitome. I used to say epitome.
That sounds great though. It sounds fancy.
I mean,
you say that, no one's gonna question. Like debris sounds like really dumb.
I mean, that's a good one. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, sometimes you learn words by reading. So, oops.
That's my problem. Is like I read so many words. Oh, I learned one the other day that was pretty cool. Gerund. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Gerund.
Yeah. So it's when you start. It's when you start a sentence with sweating. I picked up the sword from the corner. Snarling. I swung the sword at the enemy.
Yes, the evil goblin. He exploded.
Crying. I got hit in the stomach. So it's like where you start with that ing, where I'm forgetting the definition, but it's like where you have a verb.
Yeah.
You know what? We'll look up the definition later. But yeah, I think
we would like our fans back home to note that we are purely artists and certain aspects of writing escape our knowledge.
I got you. So a form that is derived from a verb, but that functions as a noun in English, ending in -ing. So
yeah,
there you go, folks.
You give it a little ing magic.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. I much like most native speakers, I am not consciously aware of most aspects of grammar, but I know when something's broken usually.
Right. Trust your gut.
Anyway, so like the book corrupts, right? And basically, I'll wrap that up because I've gone on too long about it. But basically, the book, like the person's reading it and they can't stop reading and they're like transfixed, and anyone who's around is transfixed while they read, and the person reading like turns into a monster. And yeah, it's an interesting concept, right? So already conceptually, it's interesting. And the way it's expressed, again, was very engaging. Like that book is goofy. I don't especially recommend it, but I do ultimately recommend it simply because those two magical artifacts were brilliantly expressed in the writing. That being said, there's plenty of other aspects of magic in that book that are kind of like, like there's an evil forest and it's trying to take over the world, and that's where the book comes from. And they're fighting that, and there it comes to a point in the story where it's like, we're going into the forest, and it's like, yeah. And some of the monsters you encounter there, it's like, this kind of feels like a nightmare I would have had as a kid. It's like, I'm not taking it seriously right now. It was a little silly. That's all I'll say there. Anyway, that's that.
YA can have some banger storylines. I view it similar to, this is going to be a really weird comparison, but to anime, where a lot of times the world building is peak. It's just absolutely peak.
Anime is usually great at that.
A little bit hit or miss, just as far as the like the depth. And I would say anime, I mean, is honestly, anime is phenomenal usually at like world building, character development. They kind of nail it. But YA, I see it struggling just sometimes on like that depth scale. Because it's also like, Percy Jackson is technically YA, right? And
I love Percy Jackson.
It's a great story. It's a great story, for sure. But there's something about it that now, like the adult case in, I don't know what it is, but it's just not something that I'm going to sit down and enjoy reading. Though 15 years ago, yeah, for sure.
Oh, dude, when it came out, I remember thinking it was so brilliant. But by the time the final book in the series, the original series came out, I do remember starting to notice the writing level was like for a target audience. Like I was starting to outgrow it. I distinctly remember reading the first part of the final book and kind of finding it a little shallow. So I'm actually going to reread it after I'm done with the Farseer trilogy.
That'd be cool.
Because I'm kind of reigniting an interest in Greek mythology, and that's really the only way in which I ever like kind of became familiar with it. So I got to revisit it. So I'm actually curious to know what I think of it now. And I reread a little bit of the beginning just because I was super curious. And I mean, I agree. It's a kid's book, right? So it's kind of like simple and silly and fun and tongue in cheek. It's not like you're going to get a lot of depth that is satisfactory to you as a fully developed adult. Yeah. Anyway, so we covered my question. I'm of the understanding that you might have a question to fire at me for magic systems, or we can go in a different direction.
Do it.
But
yeah, we covered my kind of the when we had decided we were going to be talking about magic systems, like one thing I wanted to know is just which different ones that you are interested in or have liked, and I think we kind of covered that to a degree. So I think let's take it a little more specific, and I'd love to hear about the magic system in your book specifically, and what inspired it and how it kind of came about.
Okay, so wow, here's my time to flatfoot. Okay, so what inspired it? It's a little difficult to like give the answer to that because everything is so gradual and accumulative over the years. It's just little pieces bit here and there. I can tell you ultimately the book as a whole has been influenced by just a vast amount of different pieces of pop culture media that I took an interest in during my developmental years. When it comes to the magic system, I was actually, it was Brandon Sanderson that really impressed me with his systematic, exacting magic systems, and I wanted to be more
I think he changed the
exacting.
game
Yeah,
for a
he
lot of
did.
people.
Yeah, and he had me sitting there thinking, "Wow, my magic system is a lot more vague. I want to be more exact." Because I was seeing the benefit in storytelling by making a more exact magic system. So I decided on that. From there, I liked the idea. I can't give you the answer to this. This is a massive deep cut, but it is the answer to the question. What specific? Brandon Sanderson inspired me to be more systematic with my magic system because before it was pretty vague, and I'm so glad I went that route because anything I've written that was more in his style in terms of again making it systematic. It's so much fun. I love doing that. It's absolutely the right way to go, especially for me anyway.
Wow. Yeah.
But what inspired the magic system itself is oddly specific. But there is. Did you ever? This is going to be relevant. I promise you. But it's going to sound like so out of left field. We're of the same age, so there's a chance. Were you ever into the Laser
Dirty
Collection?
people.
Yeah. Were you ever into the Laser Collection YouTube animated series?
No.
It was
We're
like
looking up though.
goofy, what, early 2000, well, not early 2000s, like 2010s, early 2010s, somewhere around there. It was a part of
Yes.
the
Peak.
infancy of the YouTube era. There was this guy who animated these little YouTube video shorts of something called the Laser Collection series, and it's way over the top. It's just a series of nonsensical bits where people shoot massive lasers out of their mouths at each other, and it's hilarious and ridiculous and vapid and silly. But that same guy also produced a skit. Now, I don't remember the name of the skit, but I always found it super interesting and I would revisit it. I never found it like cringy or anything like that. I'm maybe someone else would watch this and be like, "Yeah, I think that was cheap." I thought they did a great job. But the premise is that there's these people staying at this man's mansion, and it's kind of like a classic like Dracula scenario where they realize he's a monster and he's getting desperate and he wants to destroy them. And so he is some sort of monster that takes on a human form, but he has this power that he expresses in the video where he tells one of the characters like, something like, the blood in your body, it's getting hot. It feels like your head's boiling. And the guy's like, and he falls to the ground. And there was something that the monster needed. So he's like torturing the one person to get his friend to do what he wanted her to do. And he's like, you're running out of time. I don't think your buddy has much time. And then it cuts to him on the ground and he's just laying there, just dish ragged. And the point was that like he said things and they happened to the person. And I thought it was really cool and interesting. And I was like, I like that. So I came up with the idea of a magic system in which the idea is that like the first language that humanity ever used is like a perfect language. And when that language is spoken perfectly, being like the first language and the idea that humanity has like in this world, the idea is that humanity is kind of like degraded over to the multiple generations. The idea is that like this language is far more advanced than any language they speak these days. It's very complicated. It's hard to learn. But if anyone speaks it perfectly, they can make what they say happen. Yeah, so that's the basic premise there because
Wow.
I like the
That
idea.
oh,
What's
that's
up, dude?
amazing. I think it's incredible that you got from the laser collection
Yeah,
YouTube series to what is actually a very sophisticated and I think excellent idea for a magic system, which is this perfect language that humanity used to have. But I was just kind of chuckling thinking about where ideas can originate from.
yeah,
Sometimes the most random sources, and then like you never know what sparks this brilliant fire.
dude. Yeah, and I ended up going farther with it. So the idea is like people can speak it and make things happen, or and there's like tiers of power. Like you start off being able to
Mm.
influence aspects of nature, and then you might be able to like command animals, and then at the very top you could tell a human to do stuff. Or
Ooh.
affect them in some kind of way, but that would be like the most advanced level, and very few people. Back on last episode's topic about magic being remaining special, in my book, 2, 3 people tops are only ever going to be able to use the magic. Yeah, it's only ever going to be
I
three
like
at a
that.
time. Like one dies and a third's replaced in the potential second book, and that's it. It's only ever the three, and it's not
Well,
like they're
that kind
running
of
into
goes
each
back
other.
to our last
Yeah.
conversation where, yeah,
The
exactly,
magic
where
stays
it's
special. So there's way that
mhm.
people could like write the language on things, and it could affect in some ways. And the idea is that if you write it, I'm going to try to make this brief because I want to fire it back at you. I've done a lot of talking this episode, which is also good because I'm actually starting to feel comfortable with this format. I was feeling pretty awkward the
Yeah,
first few
man, me
episodes.
too. This is great.
Anyway, so anyway, the idea is that like you write a command on an object, like let's say a door. You could write something like "stay locked," and since that command is addressed to the door will stay locked. And even if you try to unlock it, it like won't lock. You'd probably have to like kick it open, right? But if there's a command that says like "don't let go of this doorknob" or something like that, and it's written on the door or the doorknob, obviously that doesn't apply to the doorknob. It would then apply to whoever grabs the object in question. So as soon as they grab the doorknob, then they wouldn't be able to let go of it. And the way in which I applied that is that there's a character with a sword, and it has all these commands written on it, and they can't disobey. So like this person has this sword, and they're a slave to all the commands that the king carved onto the sword. So they're like the most loyal, fiercest fire the king has, fiercest fighter the king has at his disposal, because they can't disobey the commands imprinted on their mind because they have this sword in their possession that address all these commands to them. So that's the basic premise there. All that being said, do you want to talk briefly about some of like your magic systems? Maybe you could like dive into Florica. I'm actually curious to know about the magic system in your book you're working on now, because I don't actually know a whole lot about it. And we've talked a lot
Yeah.
about me. I'd like to shift the focus on you, sir.
No, dude, this is great stuff. And I think the beauty of it is like as we're having this conversation, Tyler or whoever our
Our
other listeners
fan!
are,
Whoa, hey Tyler!
yeah,
Ah,
shout out Tyler.
woo!
Hopefully the wheels are turning because like you say something gives like me an idea and I say something and it just kind of it's a way to as in all these conversations. Hopefully it's like inspiring and just keeping the cycles going. But yeah, for my initial book, I'll touch on that really briefly because that trilogy's out. Go read it if you want to dive in further.
No, and it's great. It's such a fun read.
So Florica, that the origination of that is actually pretty fun. It was from a European kids show. It's called The Snow Kids, and it's about they release a season, or they were releasing a season back in the early 2000s. Every World Cup, so every 4 years they would release a season, and it was a World Cup set in the galaxy. And basically, the football
El
players
football.
in the
Yeah.
show exactly had this like fiery substance. It was
Yeah.
called the flux, and
Oh,
it
heck yeah.
like just improved all their movements, their speed, their strength, all of that. And I was like, oh my gosh, love that idea. I took it, iterated off it a little bit, kind of made it into a fantasy story. But I would say my magic, it never got like there was never like an OP'd version of it. It was really just accentuating the speed, the strength, the cunning that you do have and amplifying the characteristics. And there were different colors of Florica, and each one kind of lent itself. It was like the hat in Harry Potter in the houses.
Yeah.
Like it was an indicator of your personality and who you are. And so Yeah, that was kind of the magic system I came up with for my original trilogy. I personally really wanted to, like you, I wanted to. Um, there's a lot of Florica wielders in the story itself, like a lot, but the Florica itself is like I didn't want that to be this hyper powerful force that people were using. I just wanted it to kind of be like a the same way you might have someone like a bunch of people who are over 6 foot or whatever, right? Like it's like a characteristic,
If
and they're
everyone's
probably going to
super,
be.
yeah. So like,
No one is.
yeah, I get it. So like, you had it so that like, yeah, a lot of people have it, but most people are like okay at it, and there's very few people that like really kick butt with it. I think you did a great job at like keeping the high skill ceiling like special, as opposed to like everyone just being like a total Chad that has Florica.
Thank you.
It's still like it's like anything else. It's like you have to be good at it. Like we can all write, but
Right.
there are people
Right.
that are better than
Exactly.
others at writing.
If you
Yeah, so
if you
you
still
did good
suck
at
at
that.
sword fighting, like there's a good chance that you're not going to win against even someone without Florka. There's a character in my book. Her name is Avora, and she actually excels in. She's learned this sword system that's extremely efficient, and so unless she's fighting an equally masterful swordsman with Florica, she's just slaughtering a lot of these wielders. So it's not like something that automatically makes you that much better. I would
That was smart.
kind of
Yeah.
liken it to appreciate that, man. To like Jedi's in the Clone Wars. It was like they're leading contingents of clones, but they can definitely be killed as well. It's not like they're invincible. So
Absolutely, dude.
um,
Also, I want to say that when it comes to like how you expressed your magic system, I thought specifically the people that wielded magic in your book, I really like how you expressed like people pulling the strings of nature to kind of bend to their will. I thought that was really cool. I like the idea of kind of like evoking a sense of like literal action to these otherworldly powers, like you did. You talked about strings getting pulled, and that was really, really cool. Am I misremembering? I know there was strings getting pulled. You talked about strings getting pulled, and I always thought that was a really cool way in which like the people that
oh
wielded
my
magic.
gosh, no, yeah. Oh wow, Belton, you know my book's better than me.
Okay, I
You're
was
right.
wondering if I was misremembering something for a moment.
No, 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 no. You're right. Wow, holy cow.
That
So
was a
I would just
cool way
note
to
with
articulate that.
Orca,
Super cool.
I did have a more traditional magic system because there's this peninsula that like all of these like magical creatures kind of got like forced to an asylum.
Yeah,
And you're right, like they use the older, more traditional magic system, and that was based off these like invisible strings. So,
yeah.
wow, dude, great memory.
I
Good
also, I
job,
also, well,
Ellen.
I mean, I liked that. I loved how you talked about strings being pulled in nature to bend to their will, and I just thought that was a cool expression. And you talked about how like Florica is like this sort of spiritual flame in a sense that could like burn those strings. So like Florica has this
Yep.
power over magic and that it can cancel it out. I also really like how you
Wow.
described the centaur in your story. There's like one centaur featured in the series. And I like that he was like this alien creature. It's not like he's just a dude, totally relatable with a horse body underneath his own torso, double torso. Instead of that, he's like this mighty, beastly warrior. And when you look at his face, it's like humanoid, but it's just off. And I liked that. I found that to be a very engaging way to do that. It makes it a little more frightening when you run into a dude who's also a horse. You know, you look at his face, you're like, there's something
Right.
off there. What is this guy?
That doesn't look right. Wow,
Yeah.
your memory is like fantastic.
Well, thank you. Well, there's those are some moments that like you know how it is. Like you read anything, and
Sorry.
and those moments that are special to you, they have a way of sticking into the memory. Like years later, I can still talk about the highlight reel that I have cultivated for Stephen King or Brandon Sanderson, Michael Crichton.
Yeah,
Hopefully, I can add
big dogs.
Robin Hobb
Robin Hood.
to the list. She is killing it with this Farseer trilogy that was written before I was even born. So stinking
Yeah,
good.
and if you've ever read like any, or sorry, not read, listen to any of her podcasts, she seems so cool, like such a down to earth
Oh, yeah.
person. So,
Well, I think she must be. I mean, I think there's a lot you can tell about an author through their writing. And she's obviously a very smart, insightful person. Because like writing is an expression of to use a cliche, it's an extension of yourself, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's your ideas on the page. Like for example, I would say, your no author can write a battle of good and evil without telling the reader what their definition of good and evil is. And so if they're a morally questionable person, that can kind of creep through the page, their values and all that. And there have been authors that like I disagreed with on
Yeah.
like a personal level, and I could tell by how like the values they expressed in their heroes versus their villains and the way situations folded out. Not that that's what today's episode is about, but magic
Well,
systems.
I'll yeah, and then just touching on my new book real quick, because I know we're almost at time.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I want to know about
So
it.
yeah, so just real quick, again, think cowboys in like Victorian London is kind of how I would phrase it.
Heck yeah.
And the magic system in it is, again, I go for more subtler systems where like the magic, no one's OP'd, like no one's overpowered.
Yeah.
And so the magic in it is essentially he goes down. It's this it's called the All Well, and it's basically this bottomless pit, but it's got like this walkway all the way around,
Spiraling
circling it.
staircase. That's cool.
And if you go down it like a certain distance and then make the journey back up, very few make it back alive. But if you do, then you are if you went low enough, then you become a deadeye. And so he ends up falling down the All Well, so he goes real far. And then he comes up and like, yeah, his eyes change, they're black, there's a golden scar, and he's now effectively a deadeye. And he's got these powers that he's figuring out as the story is progressing.
That's so cool.
But the cost is that, you're talking about a life force and the sword. So, and it actually popped in my head. I was like, oh wow, that's a little bit like this system where the Allwell is taking his life force. It is like draining him. It's slowly killing him. And what ends up happening is the villain had created this antidote to try, and so there's these monsters that come out of the Allwell, and he was trying to create something that would effectively like not render them, I'm trying to think of the word, immovable. And so but this antidote kind of, it counteracts all the power of the Allwell, and so when he takes it, he loses his power, but it also stops the Allwell from draining his life force. And so he, like, where this is going is, unless he really needs to use the power, he's taking this injection regularly so that the Allwell doesn't just straight up kill him. And it was inspired by my Crohn's disease, because I would have to take a shot every other week of Humira, and so I wanted like this long-term cost or consequence, and then also like this more of a like medication for that. And so that kind of inspired this. And so now he's relying on the guy he wants to kill. And if he kills this guy and disrupts his operations, then he will no longer have his antidote. And so it's a little bit of like, he knows that, and eventually it'll get to a point where he's willing to sacrifice himself, knowing that if he takes down Balfour, he's going to die. But like, that's just kind of how it is. So
That is so that gets me so hyped to read your book, man. Day one buy.
Thanks, bro.
I'm hearing, just by like how you're describing this, I'm hearing how you've like evolved as a writer. That is so stinking cool. Like drawing in some like personal experiences to like kind of shape that. That also reminds me, this is another deep cut and one you may not be privy to. But that kind of reminds me of Bionicle, which was a theme in Lego back in the day, in the early 2000s. It's a theme that carried Lego through a dark time they had in their business. And so Bionicle always had its story planned. They had a little comic book series that they would ship out on the monthly to go in conjunction with the toys that they were pushing out. and I was super engrossed in it. But the idea was that there was this massive robot who was like sick, right? He was sick with this infection of the bad guys. So he's like a giant robot, and there's a bunch of tiny robots inside of him. And the heroes are the ones that come in that are basically like white blood cells that come in to or
That's cool.
I'm
Fight the sickness.
yeah, or whatever it is. I don't know if I said the right thing. Yeah, I'm not a scientist. I'm feeling very ignorant right now. Yeah, so like, those cells, whatever they are, T cells or something, that come in to fight for the body, it was kind of representative of that. And the guy who authored it, like, he came up with that idea because at the time he was fighting this horrible, debilitating disease in which he had to take like these massive pills. And he had the idea of like a canister that enters your body and it, cracks open and all these little things come out that fight for you. And that was the baseline idea for Bionicle, which that was how they were packaged, was in these capsules, and you would come out with all these parts and you would assemble these heroes that would then fight the evil ones. And it was so like same variety of inspiration that you had for your story. I think that's kind of a cool link I just put together in my head.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I did not know the backstory of Bionicle, but I love that, and that makes so much sense because they did come in these like the circular balls, right? And you kind of like undo them or whatever. So cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you froze.
No, all good. Yeah, man. Anyway, I think that's it for today's episode, right? I think we hit all our bases. You've got a really freaking cool premise in your book. I already knew that. I love the first chapter I read, and I've been itching to read more. I'm excited.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Well, I will be querying starting this month. So.
Oh, really?
Also, shout out to NaNoWriMo. Maybe that's something we talk about in the next episode. But
heck yeah! Oh yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, projects and stuff. But yeah, man, this was great.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, so we'll have to. We're signing off now. I think we should come up with some way to sign off, but not right now. So we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.